Stranded on the desolate planet Cryon, Noah clings to a fading fire. Haunted by memories of Earth's vibrant chaos, a mysterious tremor heralds the arrival of Sylvara, a radiant being with secrets that could save or doom them both. Will they defeat the awakening Evil Zorath? Dive into their epic journey. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more thrilling stories and to fuel our creative fire. Noah sat alone beside the fire, his dark, dusty suit humming faintly as it kept him alive in the thin air of Cryon's barren landscape. The wreckage of his Horizon core ship lay scattered across the craggy desert-like terrain. Its systems failed, and its metal carcass gleaming faintly under the pale moon. Cryon wasn't known for much other than its desolation, a planet at the edge of the galaxy, forgotten and unwelcoming. Yet, this lifeless rock was his prison. The fire crackled in front of him, a futile act of rebellion against the emptiness surrounding him. He poked the embers with a stick, watching them flicker. Each snap of the fire was a cruel reminder of what he was missing. New Orleans, the city of life, jazz, and chaos. Jazzy streets, lively nights, and the hum of people levying. Hell, I'd even take the traffic right now, he thought bitterly. His wrist-mounted distress beacon had sent out countless pings, but nothing had come back. The last signal was 17 hours ago. They were either ignoring him or, worse, he was just forgotten. Who am I kidding? He muttered to no one in particular, shaking his head. No one's coming. I'm just another lost soul in space. His words were sharp, a defense mechanism, but they cut through the silence like a knife. The fire danced, throwing shadows across the jagged rocks. He sighed, leaning back against the charred remnants of his ship. His mind wandered to Earth, to the music that once filled the streets, to the noise of a world that now felt as distant as a dream. He let out a laugh, but it was hollow, echoing off the barren landscape. Then, without warning, the ground beneath him shuddered. The fire flared, throwing embers into the air as something approached. He snapped to his feet, eyes scanning the dark horizon. The vibration underfoot grew stronger. Was it a quake? No. It felt more deliberate, more alive. Chapter 2. Sylvara's entrance. The vibrations intensified, sending a tremor through the cracked, lifeless ground. Noah's heart skipped a beat. His instincts screamed danger, but there was nothing to do, no place to hide. The sound of soft, purposeful footsteps echoed through the desolation, carrying a rhythm both alien and familiar. From the edge of the campfire's glow, a figure emerged. At first, it was just a silhouette against the dark expanse of Cryon's endless horizon. But as the figure stepped closer, the firelight revealed more. A woman? No, a being, whose form seemed to shimmer and shift like liquid light. Her long golden hair caught the embers flicker, giving her an ethereal quality. Her skin, pale as bone, glowed softly in the dim light, and her emerald eyes burned with an intensity that seemed to see straight through him. Noah froze, his breath catching in his throat. He'd seen a lot in his career as a Horizon Corp explorer, but this was something else entirely. She spoke, her voice smooth like velvet but carrying an ancient weight. I am Sylvara, of the Vellorians. Noah blinked, still trying to process the sight before him. Vellorians? Seriously? What is this? Some sort of alien cult? His voice cracked with a nervous laugh, trying to keep his cool, but his pulse quickened. Sylvara tilted her head, a slight smirk crossing her lips. I am no cult. I am the last of my kind. Her gaze pierced his, unrelenting. You awakened me from stasis, Noah. The name hit him like a slap. How did she know his name? Yeah, well, I didn't mean to, he muttered, stepping back instinctively, his hand reaching for his plasma torch. His fingers brushed the cool surface of the handle. She didn't flinch. Instead, she took a step closer, her eyes never levying his. You didn't mean to, she said softly, almost gently. But it was fate. Noah's heart raced as the weight of her words settled over him. Fate. Before he could speak, Sylvara gestured to the horizon. The tremors beneath us, they are not a coincidence. Zorath stirs. Noah's stomach clenched. Zorath. He knew this wasn't going to be some random encounter, and he certainly didn't like the sound of whatever Zorath was. Chapter 3. Emotional Resonance. Noah stood still, the firelight flickering wildly in front of him, casting long shadows over the cracked surface of Cryon. Sylvara's words hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. Zorath stirs. The tremors underfoot were no longer a distant threat. They were real, and they were coming for them. He stepped back, his mind racing. Zorath. The name was unfamiliar, but the weight in her voice told him everything he needed to know. Okay, let's rewind a second here, Noah said, forcing himself to sound calm, though his heart was pounding. You're telling me you're the last of your kind, and the big bad that's about to wake up is someone named Zorath. What's this? Some kind of fairy tale? Sylvara didn't flinch at his words. She stepped closer, her movements almost graceful, like she was floating across the cracked earth. Her emerald eyes burned brighter in the firelight. We Vellorians don't rely on blood to sustain us, she said, her voice smooth but edged with sorrow. We thrive on emotional resonance, on the bonds that tie us to others. A Vellorian doesn't just feel emotions, we live them. They are our sustenance. She paused, her gaze narrowing. And Zorath. Zorath believed that emotions were a flaw. Noah's brow furrowed as he tried to process her words. So you feed on feelings? I mean, that's kinda messed up. His sarcasm was a defense, but beneath it, he could feel something stir, a curiosity, an understanding. She wasn't just some alien species. She was lonely. The fire's crackling was suddenly too loud, too present. Sylvara's voice softened, and there was a glimmer of something between them, an unspoken connection. We don't feed on emotion like a parasite. We share it. It sustains us, gives us life. Her gaze held his, and in that moment, Noah felt something he hadn't in years. A sudden ache of longing, a yearning for something beyond the empty void of space. You're saying, I can help you? He asked, his voice quieter now. He didn't know what it meant, but it felt like the right thing to ask. Sylvara nodded, her expression unreadable. Yes, but not just me. If we don't stop Zorath, there will be no more of us. No more resonance. Chapter 4. Zorath's Awakening. The tremors beneath them grew stronger, the ground vibrating violently now. Noah's feet shifted uneasily in the loose gravel, his heart racing. The fire sputtered, flickering wildly as if the planet itself was rejecting its presence. Sylvara stood perfectly still, her eyes closed for a brief moment, her fingers lightly brushing the cool air. The awakening has begun, she murmured, her voice tinged with something ancient and foreboding. Her head tilted as if she could sense the pulse deep within the planet's core. Zorath is stirring beneath Cryon. He's waking. Noah stepped forward, his body tense, but his mind reeling. Zorath, this guy. Who is he, really? You've mentioned him, but what does he actually do? His hand instinctively reached for the plasma torch at his belt. The last few hours had been a whirlwind, and he felt the urgent need to grasp onto something tangible. Sylvara's gaze shifted toward the cracked horizon. Zorath was a leader, a tyrant among my people. He believed that emotions were a flaw, a weakness to be eradicated. He thought love, empathy, and connection were distractions. He sought to erase them, to make my people cold, detached, and hollow. Her voice cracked slightly at the end, as if the memories themselves were too painful to bear. So, he's light. The ultimate anti-love guy, Noah asked, still trying to get a handle on this. He wasn't sure whether to be intrigued or terrified, maybe a bit of both. Sylvara's lips pressed into a thin line. Worse, he believed in control over feelings, over our existence. If he rises again, he will erase every trace of what made us us. Noah's mind swirled. He wasn't sure whether to be confused or amazed. This was more than just a fight for survival. It was a fight to preserve something fundamental about who Sylvara was, and maybe something about what he was, too. The ground beneath them rumbled again, this time with an intensity that knocked Noah off balance. He stumbled, but caught himself against a rock. His breath came faster now as the earth continued to shudder beneath his boots. Then, suddenly, a shrill sound pierced the air, a psychic wail, sharp and unearthly. The hairs on Noah's neck stood on end as the sound reverberated through his skull, making him dizzy. Sylvara's eyes snapped open, glowing bright as she caught his arm, steadying him. "That was him," she whispered urgently. "Zorath is close." Noah's pulse spiked. This wasn't just an awakening. It was a countdown, and they didn't have much time left. Chapter 5. The Descent into the Crypt. Sylvara's grip tightened on Noah's arm as the tremors shook the ground once more. The shrill psychic wail faded, but its echo lingered in the air like a heavy fog. Every step Noah took toward the darkened entrance of the crypt felt like a step further into the unknown. The crypt was a cavernous structure, its stone walls etched with strange symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. The air here felt different, denser, colder, as though it held centuries of secrets. Noah's hand hovered near his plasma torch, but the weight of the unknown made it feel like a poor defense. It wasn't the dark that unnerved him. It was the creeping sense that something in this place was alive, watching, waiting. They descended into the crypt's depths, the rough-hewn steps leading them into the heart of the Vellorian ruin. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. The walls felt like they were closing in, pressing down on him with the weight of untold centuries. Despite the flickering light of their torch, the shadows in the crypt seemed to swallow them whole. Sylvara moved ahead of him, her movements graceful but quick. She seemed to be leading him, as though guided by something far more ancient than her own senses. Noah caught glimpses of her, the faint glow of her skin illuminating the path ahead. The closer they got to Zorath's resting place, the more restless the ground became. The tremors were constant now, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Then, as they rounded a sharp corner, the air in the crypt shifted. Noah felt it, like a sudden pressure building around his chest, pushing in from all sides. Sylvara stopped abruptly, her face pale but resolute. She turned to him, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and determination. "He's here," she whispered, barely audible over the growing hum that filled the air. "Zorath." Noah's heart raced as a low growl echoed through the chamber, deep and resonating. It wasn't a physical sound. It was psychic, a ripple through the very fabric of reality. A cold presence washed over him, crawling under his skin. He turned just in time to see a flicker of movement in the shadows, dark, angular, and massive. A sudden flash of blue light exploded from the shadows. The force of it slammed into him, knocking the breath from his lungs. His back hit the stone wall with a sickening thud. He gasped, struggling to stay upright. Eyes wide as the darkness began to take shape, Zorath was no longer a myth. He was real, and he was here. Sylvara screamed, reaching out to him. But Zorath's psychic presence pushed her back with terrifying force. The fight was beginning, and they were outmatched. Chapter 6. Zorath's Psychic Attack. The air was thick with tension, the hum of Zorath's power pressing in on Noah like a vice. He struggled to keep his footing as the stone walls seemed to pulse with a dark energy, responding to the force emanating from Zorath. Sylvara stood beside him, her expression strained, her eyes glowing as she tried to push back against the psychic pressure that was bearing down on them. Zorath's form emerged from the shadows, towering and imposing. His skin was dark, almost metallic, and his eyes glowed with an unnatural coldness that sent a shiver down Noah's spine. But it wasn't his appearance that made Noah's heart pound. It was the crushing weight of his presence, pressing into his mind like an iron fist. Every thought Noah had, every memory of Earth, began to flicker and fade as Zorath's psychic force attacked his very sense of self. "You are weak, human," Zorath's voice echoed in his mind, cold and clinical. "You carry with you the flaw of emotion. It will be your undoing." Noah gasped, clutching his head as his thoughts spiraled, disjointed. Memories of Earth, New Orleans, the chaos, the music began to unravel, as if Zorath's mind was erasing them. Panic surged through Noah as he felt his grip on reality loosen. No, not this. Not now. Sylvara's voice cut through the fog of his mind. Don't let him take you, Noah, she shouted, her voice strained, but full of urgency. You have to fight. Noah's body shook as he tried to focus. The plasma torch on his belt felt like an anchor, a lifeline to the world he knew. But it wasn't enough. Zorath's psychic attack was too powerful, too overwhelming. With a guttural snarl, Zorath raised his hand, and a surge of energy shot from his palm, striking Noah directly in the chest. The force knocked him to the ground, his head slamming against the cold stone. The world tilted, his vision blurring, but his heart still thudded with a fierce, stubborn rhythm. Fight, Noah. Sylvara's voice broke through the haze once more, her form now closer. She reached for him, her hand glowing with her own psychic energy. Her touch was like a jolt of electricity. The moment their hands made contact, a wave of warmth flooded Noah's chest. It was the connection, the bond they had forged in their shared struggle. In that instant, Noah felt his strength return, a fierce fire igniting inside him. He stood up, shaking off the haze Zorath had tried to drown him in. No more, Noah growled, his voice steady as the power of his emotions surged. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for everything he had left, and Zorath would not take it from him. Chapter 7, The Final Stand. Zorath's presence filled the chamber, a suffocating weight pressing down on Noah's chest as he fought to keep his mind intact. The air hummed with a dark, palpable energy, and Noah could feel the coldness of Zorath's gaze piercing through him. The crypt's stone walls seemed to close in, vibrating with the intensity of the psychic battle raging between them. Sylvara stood beside him, her eyes glowing with fierce determination. But even her strength seemed to falter under the crushing weight of Zorath's power. He could see the strain on her face, the tension in her body as she tried to keep Zorath at bay. You cannot resist me, Sylvara, Zorath's voice boomed, a voice that seemed to reverberate through Noah's very bones. Your emotions are weak. You will fall, just like your kind. Noah gritted his teeth, shaking off the remnants of Zorath's psychic attack that had nearly wiped him out. His body was bruised and battered, his head spinning, but the fire inside him had ignited once again. He was done being a victim. Not today, you bastard, Noah spat, his voice steady despite the throbbing pain in his chest. He reached for the plasma torch at his belt, his fingers trembling slightly as he gripped the handle. He didn't know if it would be enough, but it was all he had left. Zorath's cold laugh echoed in the chamber. Your weapons are useless against me, human. With a flick of his hand, Zorath unleashed a blast of psychic energy, sending a shockwave through the room. The force slammed into Noah, knocking him off his feet and sending him crashing into the stone floor. His vision swam as the world around him tilted and spun. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. His chest tightened as if an invisible weight was crushing him. Sylvara screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the roar of Zorath's power. Her eyes were wild with panic, but something deep inside Noah stirred. He wouldn't let this be the end. Through the haze of pain, he heard Sylvara's voice, distant but clear. Noah, focus. You have to fight back. He dragged himself to his knees, his hands trembling but determined. His fingers closed around the plasma torch's grip once more, his knuckles white. He couldn't let Zorath win, not when he'd come this far, not when he'd found something worth fighting for. With a sudden surge of strength, Noah activated the plasma torch. A brilliant blue beam erupted from the device, slicing through the darkness with intense heat. The beam cut through the air, aimed straight for Zorath's heart. For a moment, everything froze. Then, with a deafening roar, Zorath's figure distorted, his form flickering as the plasma beam struck. His psychic barrier faltered, cracking under the intensity of the blast. Zorath's eyes widened in disbelief as the beam connected. Impossible, he hissed, his voice filled with rage. Sylvara's voice pierced through the chaos, her voice a desperate cry. Now, Noah. With a final, gut-wrenching scream, Zorath's form erupted into a burst of dark energy. The force of it sent a shockwave through the chamber, throwing Noah and Sylvara to the ground. The air was thick with the scent of ozone as the energy crackled, then slowly, it began to dissipate. When the dust cleared, Zorath was gone. The chamber fell silent. Noah's chest heaved with ragged breaths, and his body felt like it was on fire. But he had done it. They had done it. Sylvara staggered to her feet, her glowing eyes searching him with a mixture of awe and relief. You did it, she whispered, her voice hoarse. She reached for him, her hand trembling as it brushed his arm. He managed a weak smile, despite the exhaustion coursing through him. We did it, he corrected her. Together, they had faced the darkness, and together, they had won. Chapter 8, The Journey Back. The crypt, once a place of cold terror, now lay in ruin. The last echoes of Zorath's psychic wail had faded, and the oppressive darkness that had filled the chamber began to lift. Noah's chest still heaved from the battle, the adrenaline coursing through his veins like wildfire. But it was starting to wear off. His body ached, every muscle burned, every joint protested. Yet despite the pain, there was something else, something almost exhilarating. He had faced the worst and survived. Sylvara stood beside him, her posture still regal but tinged with exhaustion. Her eyes, glowing faintly, flickered with both sorrow and relief. She reached out and placed a hand on his arm, her touch grounding him. The warmth of her hand sent a jolt through his chest, reminding him of the connection they had forged in the heat of battle. You're not alone anymore, she whispered, as if reading his thoughts. Noah looked at her, his breath still shallow, and nodded. The weight of the words wasn't lost on him. He had never felt more alone than he had in those endless days on Cryon. But now, he had someone who understood what it meant to be lost, to have fought for survival, to have faced death and come out the other side. The path back to the surface was grueling. The air was still cold, but it felt different now, less suffocating. The light that poured through the broken crypt entrance seemed brighter. Even the stars above them, which had once felt so distant, now felt like they were within reach. Noah stumbled slightly as they ascended, his foot catching on a loose stone. But Sylvara caught him effortlessly, steadying him. Easy there, hero, she said with a soft smile. Her voice, though weary, held an unspoken affection that Noah couldn't ignore. They emerged into the open, and Noah inhaled deeply. The cold, alien air of Cryon filled his lungs, but it didn't feel quite as hostile anymore. The future, once uncertain, now seemed like something worth fighting for. And standing beside him, Sylvara wasn't just a survivor. She was his partner. The journey was far from over, but for the first time since his crash, Noah felt like he wasn't alone in this vast, lonely universe. Chapter 9, Love Rekindled. Noah sat next to the crackling campfire, his worn-out body resting against the smooth rocks of Cryon's coastal crater. The fire's warm glow flickered in the cool night air, but the planet's oppressive emptiness seemed distant now, pushed back by the comfort of Sylvara's presence. She was beside him, her head resting gently on his shoulder, her radiant form seeming to blend into the light of the fire. The warmth between them wasn't just physical, it was something deeper. A bond forged in the chaos of survival. The silence stretched between them, comfortable yet heavy with unspoken words. Noah glanced down at her, feeling the weight of everything they had faced together. You know, this isn't exactly how I imagined my first alien encounter, he muttered, his voice rough with fatigue, trying to inject some humor into the moment. Sylvara lifted her head slightly, just enough to glance at him through her glowing eyes. Her lips curled into a soft smile, and for a fleeting moment, Noah saw a vulnerability in her, a longing that mirrored his own. I didn't expect it to be so human, she replied quietly, her tone rich with a mix of affection and sadness. But I'm glad it is. The fire crackled louder, breaking the brief silence. Noah's heart ached at her words. He had never felt disconnected to anyone, not even back on Earth, surrounded by the bustling streets of New Orleans. And yet here, with Sylvara, he felt something raw, something real. He shifted, turning toward her, his hand resting on hers. I'm not going anywhere, he said, his voice firm with a promise he meant to keep. You know that, right? Her gaze softened as she intertwined her fingers with his, the warmth of her touch sending a shiver through his chest. I know, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But I'm still scared. Noah squeezed her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. Then let's be scared together. They both sat in the firelight, a quiet understanding settling between them. The universe might have been a vast, unforgiving place, but for the first time since the crash, Noah felt like he wasn't facing it alone. He wasn't alone anymore. Not now. Not ever.